Thank you very much. Hi.
How are you?
So happy to see you.
It's nice to be here.
Welcome to the press conference for the Mastermind, which is having its world premiere in competition at the 78th Cannes Film Festival. It's a delight to be able to introduce our guests, and I will start next to me with one of the actors. He won the Robert Altman Award for his performance in Kelly Reichardt's previous film, Showing Up, and he was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award for The Big Short. This is his third collaboration with Kelly in the role of Fred, John Magaro.
I thought he was speaking French.
I can if you like. At the other end of the table, he's literally acting royalty, having starred in 2 seasons of The Crown. He stars in 2 films that are screening in Cannes this year, the other being The History of Sound. He first came to Cannes in 2023 with La Chimera in the role of J.B. Mooney, Josh O'Connor. This is her third film in Cannes, following Wendy and Lucy and Showing Up. In 2022, she was awarded the Cannes Carrosse d'Or for the ensemble of her work, and in 2021, the Centre Pompidou devoted a retrospective to her films. The editor, writer, and director, Kelly Reichardt. Kelly, that's the longest ovation I've heard at the beginning of a press conference. And I also take the opportunity to introduce 3 of the other filmmakers, people from behind the camera, sitting in the front row. We have the film's producers, Neil Kopp and Anish Shavjani. And the
Could you mention?
I still down here.
It's Anisha's birthday, we're trying to say.
We also have the film's costume designer, Amy Roth.
Woo!
While people are catching their breath and from all the applause, Kelly, let me start. Where did the idea for an art heist come from?
Well, I've been reading, collecting, looking up art heists for a long time. And actually, when we were, Chris Blauvelt and I were in Antibes before Showing Up, I was scouting around for art heist stories, and it happened to be the 50th anniversary of an art heist in Worcester, Massachusetts, where these teenagers got caught up in this heist. And so that was kind of like, I thought, okay, that's a good, that was like the beginning little seed of it. Yeah.
I love the attention, the love that you give to craft in your film and in your way of working. Can you tell us about then how you developed the project and how you went into pre-production on it?
It happened, well, with Neil and Anish kind of quickly. The writing went on for a while, just a kind of everyday plugging away. And I never really know how to sum up process because it's an everyday thing. But then these guys really put it together. And with Mubi and everyone, I don't know, they got behind us and we went to Ohio, Cincinnati to film. And, oh yeah, Josh came on board. Magaro, that part was kind of written with him in mind. Yeah, so it happened, it feels like it happened really fast. And yeah, and then a great collaboration with people like Amy Roth and the production designer, Tony Gasparo, and beautiful Chris Blauvelt, and yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to open this up. We have a number of questions on the floor. We'll start on the right.
Don't.
Dylan Fernando, Films Fatale Canada. This question is for the entire table. Would you please discuss the theme of identity in the film? Thank you.
Thesis.
Josh,
Josh,
why don't you take that one?
I don't know.
I think. Well, I think the character it's well. He's set in a he follows a certain tradition from the period of the late 60s, 70s kind of Hollywood New Wave, and also characters of sort of the disenchanted, most entitled white male people of the world going off to find themselves and having the luxury to do that. But so there's I think a lot of room to project onto the character. And so some of the identity comes from, like, I guess what you bring to it, and some of it, is maybe in the tradition of a Simenon character who's sort of, puts out his best effort, works as hard as he can, and then, the sort of punchline, of course, is doom in every case. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I echo that. I think I sort of think it's difficult. I think it's sometimes difficult to talk about the identity of a character that you've played because you're playing them. And as far as I'm concerned, playing Mooney, I think he's got this brilliant idea, and it just goes terribly wrong. But he was so close to going incredibly right. Well, no, in reality, not that close.
No,
but as far as I was concerned, we were very nearly there. But yeah, I think what Kelly said was right.
They all sounded really good, so
Yeah.
we'll just move on to the next question.
No, we won't, John. I want to come back to that because you play you have an incredible scene, just so intense. It's so wonderful, the chemistry between you. But it's a scene that exists in itself, cut off from the rest of the film. How do you build a character then on that? How do you discuss that with Kelly?
I mean, I think Kelly and I, we've worked together a few times now, so I think there's an understanding, like many of the people who work with her over and over again, Chris Bobalt, Neil Nish, Tony, the list goes on. I think what I love about Kelly's films are that these characters are just people. They're people we come across in our lives. They're people that we have relationships with that pass in and out of our lives. And that's what makes their ordinary nature is what makes them wonderful and lovely and beautiful to watch. So I think there isn't much to say. I think we know Fred's function in this, and I think what's lovely about that sequence is it offers kind of a respite from the story previous to it. It offers Josh's character a chance to sort of rest for a moment and also be challenged. I love Gabby's performance in this one. I heard she was part of it. I mean, Gabby really is probably the only, I mean, Alana does it to some degree, but she's the one who really challenges him. But then you have this nurturing soul in Fred on the, the antithesis of that. So just lean into it and do it.
But it was mostly the sandals.
Oh, the sandal. That's Amy.
Yeah.
The shoes. We had to find Fred and the sandals in the snow.
Yeah.
And I think there was a discussion about, they're like, do people wear that? I'm like, my brother does that. He wears sandals in the snow. And so, yeah, that found Fred. And the hat.
And the hat, yeah.
Thank you. We have a question on the left. Oh, sorry, in the middle.
Good morning. Arthur Gadelha, do jornal O Povo, Brasil. Josh, I really admire your work, especially your characters who are quiet, delicate, and shy. When I heard you were going to be in a Kelly movie, I thought, yeah, how has this not happened before? Because Kelly's films are introspective, quiet, and warm. Your character is a criminal, but he is naive and melancholic. So how was your connection with Kelly during the preparation of this character? Thank you.
Speaking off the cuff.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Well, I was a big follower of Kelly's films. Get ready. So I think, yeah, I found myself drawn, not necessarily actively, but I found myself drawn to the kind of the ordinary. Like John said, it's kind of often, you know, when we go to the theatres, we see oftentimes the most extreme versions of characters, of human nature, and that's what we know as drama. And I find now, like, often want to see ordinary people put in kind of extraordinary positions. Mooney puts himself in an extraordinary position. That's sort of his own doing. But yeah, Kelly and I, well, we talked around the period a lot. Kelly sent me some essays, the Joan Didion essay.
Yeah, some music.
Yeah, some music. They were all really helpful. I did what I normally did, like kind of read things around and I did my own versions of the Arthur Dove drawings, which we were going to use, I think, but I didn't make it in time, and they were on lined paper. So that was useless. But yeah, in terms of Kelly
1970.
Yeah, but in terms of Kelly before that, I mean, I was a big admirer of Kelly's work, but also John, and who I'd seen in Kelly's movies and in other movies. Michelle Williams is obviously one fact I would love too, and so these were kind of actors that I admire and look up to, and they kept coming back to Kelly seemed to be a good thing, and they were right. It's a great thing.
Thank you. On the right.
Bonjour, Conchita Casanovas de Radio Televisión Española. No, en question pour Kelly, en question pour Josh, please. For Kelly, another cinema is still possible out of the American blockbusters. Your cinema is, you confirm that another cinema is possible still today out of the blockbusters American. And one question for Josh O'Connor. How to films in competition? How is to be one of the actors of the moment?
Actor of the moment. All I really understood was that it's a blockbuster, and I accept that. And Josh is of the moment. Yeah, thank you to Mubi for that, to be able to make a film where they gave us the resources to do it and then said, we're standing here if you need any help, and then didn't impose in any way. And it's a very fortunate thing. Yeah, it's a very fortunate thing. But I think all the arts in America are, like science and education, are really obviously in a very precarious situation right now. So, yeah. I mean, when we were here 3 years ago, I said, you know, America's in such a dark place. So, you know, if we come back, let's hope. But anyway, what's it like to be the star of the moment? Boy,
Thanks, Kelly.
Actor of the moment.
Not star of the moment.
Oh, yeah, right.
Feels the same as it felt a bit before I was the actor of the moment. But I'm spending less time at home, that's the bit that sucks. Yeah, but I feel very lucky to be working. It's just for a moment. Yeah, it's just this small moment. It'll pass. Yeah. It will go any minute now. So for now, I'm just soaking it all in. Yeah.
Kelly, let me come back, if I may, to something you just said, and that is the strange atmosphere, the strange situation that you felt America was in when you were making Showing Up. I'm curious about the background, the Vietnam War in this film, and how you dealt with it. And also you shot, I believe, during the run-up to the elections.
We shot during the elections. The day of the election. The Teamsters were very happy, and the caterers were crying. But it was a lovely bubble to be in because we all had this work in common, and there wasn't this big divide between everybody. We had this other kind of mission we were on. But we were shooting in J.D. Vance's neighborhood. But Cincinnati is a lovely city, a blue city in a red state. I don't know, when I made Old Joy, at the beginning of the Bush era, we thought that was like the dark spot. So, but how we handled the Vietnam was just, I was trying to sort of approach it the way the character was, that it was on the outskirts and the fringe of his mind and thought, and not really focused on it in any way, that it was on the peripheral. And so I tried to work it that way in the film as well, until it kind of, that you maybe, I think, the question of, the individual versus who you are in a community or a society, and can you keep those things separate all the time, and that kind of just pondering those things, yeah.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, it's
On the
here.
right.
Hi, good morning, Maria Guerra, Quinoteco, Spain. This is a question for Kelly Reichardt. I'd like you to elaborate a little bit the connection with today, because it seems to me that the main character is a man isolated, unable to act or to connect with reality and being functional, and meanwhile he's like doing reckless things just to keep up, to feel that he's a man, and it resounds with me so much as this mental situation in the States, like there is somebody who is doing things and is really disconnected with reality. Like,
I'm
let's say,
not going to compare my Mooney to that guy.
no, it's a mental state,
Yeah.
the situation. And also, I'd like to ask you about what do you think about the shutdown, Harvard's close down for foreigners? Thank you.
What was the last part?
If Harvard's, Trump said that Harvard is closing.
Yeah, he took this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, but I'm just a filmmaker. I feel sort of out of my depth, trying to, I think we all feel, obviously, I teach at Bard College for, almost 20 years and been teaching for 30 years, and it's all really scary. It's surprising how far it's gone, how fast. More scary to me was watching Tufts, the college I went to, watching a young woman walk out of class and get shoved into a van and taken out of the country. That to me is scarier. As to, I don't know what to say about it really. Atrocious. What can you say? And to compare it, I don't know, it's a heavy thing. I really just finished making this film Friday before I came. So I can't say that I have this great distant perspective on it. But John would like to say, answer this.
John would like to say something.
It's ridiculous. And we have a leader who's having temper tantrums every day, but it affects millions and millions of people's lives. It's hard for me to remain hopeful, but we still have a judicial system to some degree in our country, and I think it's going to be hard for him to hold that crazy order in place. I feel like there will be hopefully some respite. Hopefully, I'm saying hopefully. I know you know how hard that is.
I know.
But
He is a kid. He has to be hopeful.
I'm naive.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's a
anyway.
fucking mess.
That was, yeah. Well, we've solved that.
Yeah. What's the next world issue you guys want to talk about?
Question on the left.
Frédéric Rougeau, le Maxima, je posais la question en français pour qu'elle soit un peu mieux traduite que je ne le ferai moi-même. Pour ce film, vous avez naturalisé beaucoup de motifs, de symboles, de références assez évidentes du Nouvel Hollywood. Est-ce que vous avez dû revoir toutes ces références-là et dans quelle mesure ces références-là vous ont accompagné jusqu'au tournage, c'est-à-dire jusqu'à l'interprétation ensuite qui a été demandée aux acteurs?
Did I Google the heist? Well, I'm a fan of, I think there's like an ode to a certain kind of filmmaking present in the movie. Jean-Pierre Melville is a favorite filmmaker of mine, and but all these films, and I love the Hollywood New Wave, and but also that genre is very films of men made by men, and so this tradition of the bumbling jerk in a way, but that is also a hero in some respect. I mean, some of that is just the nature of narrative. If you follow someone, if you follow Travis Bickle, or you follow, any Jack Nicholson character, he can do whatever he wants, and somehow, you're on his side. But so, I'm interested in that tradition, but I'm also interested in breaking it down a little bit and looking at how the parts of it work and then kind of fall apart. I mean, I think the genre kind of deconstructs as Mooney's plan does, and falls into more of an aftermath film and a unraveling, and so I'm interested in. I guess I'm drawn to certain genres and figuring out how they work, and what you could show a different perspective on them from people that are not in the center. It's interesting to me.
Thank you. A question on the right.
Hello, Ana Hoyt from La Crónica. Being from Mexico, I was reminded of a wonderful film called Museo, de Alfonso Ruiz Palacios. I'm not making comparisons. I'm just thinking that since I am from Mexico, this film is also about a heist, about robbing a piece from a museum. And there's a lot of background noise that the character is always listening to about the political situation, about what crooks are the government. Being from Mexico, it's clear to me that this is something that, in a way, gives permission to the character to feel like, okay, there's a bunch of crooks who are in power. So in a way, I have that power to do it too. But I was wondering if, in this case, this is a question for Josh, did you have to understand the motivations in your character in order to play him, or was it the ambiguity that the film, does something that you also just went with, or did you really have to kind of find what was the motivation for your character and how everything else going around is playing into your acting, to what you do? I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think like thank you. We're surrounded by men who have oftentimes low self-esteem and a big ego, and I think trying to kind of understand that was one of the things I was interested with Mooney. I think one of my favorite aspects of the movie is the number of times we see him going into the garage, and lifting up as Terry's taking the kids to school, and he's in his underwear. That really felt like a really Mooney thing to do. He's sort of, I think he's lost. I think he believes he had these grand expectations for his life, and he never fulfilled them. And there's an element of he deserves better, and so his great plan is a masterpiece. It's a work of art in itself. It sort of trumps Arthur Dove's work in a weird way. Obviously, it doesn't, and it's a disaster. But it comes from a privilege, a total privilege. It comes from generations of men, being told that they deserve something more. And so it's an interesting time in history, and a lot of the stuff that we were reading and that Kelly was sending me in the essays that I read, but about sort of male roles in that period and the shifting, the changing tides of that's a really interesting thing to me. That you kind of from particularly the First World War, but first and second, you have men going to war and being lauded as heroes, and particularly in the First World War, dying for really very little seeming cause. And then you've got the background of the Vietnam War, and I know that's just that's for you to kind of decide. But I think, what is Mooney's role, and what does he think he deserves? What does he think his role should be? So that was kind of being led by that in some ways.
Thank you. We have a question in the middle.
Thank you all. Nolan Kelly from Spike Art Magazine Berlin. I'm curious about the art element of this movie, especially in relationship to your last film, Showing Up, and just the ways that art can variously impact people's lives, unconventionally sometimes. First, I'm curious if you see a connection or a relationship between those two movies, if they're in conversation with each other. And then also working with Josh, if you guys discussed Mooney's character as an artist, a wannabe artist, someone who is, working within maybe the same milieu or academic background as Michelle Williams' character in the previous film.
Thanks. I didn't think of them in relationship to each other. Maybe I wasn't quite done. I mean, it's very lovely to have so much of your research be about art. It's kind of nice. I mean, Dove was a really, Dove I put in the first draft, I almost like a placeholder, and thought, his paintings are too unknown maybe in 1970, and maybe, I worried, they're quite small, but I love them. And I was afraid that they maybe, and Tony Gasparo, the production designer, and I spent a lot of time talking about, would they have the oomph of feeling like that Mooney was really taking something of value, but I came back around to them, and because nothing else really quite made sense, and I liked the idea that he had an attachment to a painting, even that if he maybe wouldn't even remember where it, like all of us, you forget how you got turned on to something and why it matters to you, and then you come to know it more. But I loved that Arthur Dove was a landscape painter, an American landscape painter, and a modernist, or maybe the first modern American modernist, they say, but also just small in scale, which I felt like fit the our size museum, our size heist, our size film, Mooney's size ambition. I mean, he's running by a Homer Winslow painting on the way out the door, where they are with their, he's running by some much more valuable art. But so I don't know. It's and then I can't remember if you knew Dove before.
Yeah, but only the sunset and the swirly sun.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because that's
the one above Priya's office.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it was really nice to get to indulge in. And there was this little practical reason that I happened to know someone that worked at the Phillips Museum in D.C. who has they have a huge Dove collection. So I was like, okay, here's a place to start. And then, Neil Kopp and all became chroniclers of Dove and how to track down doves. And so, yeah, I don't know. And the colors end up being very nice for our film. And what else can I say about Dove? Yeah, and so, yeah. Balanced with these great cat paintings that are at the end later in the film. And I'm spacing on Irina's last name. Come on, Neil. Yeah. I used to know that. Anyway, yeah, those are some paintings. Nettle? Nettle. Irina Nettle. Yeah, she does the cat paintings, which are in a boarding house that I stay at when I teach at Bard. And one of my old students went and gathered the paintings and drove them to Cincinnati for us.
Yeah.
It was all very sweet, yeah.
That was cool.
Question on the right.
Yes. Hello, Olga Ryn from Swedish film magazine FLM, and this is a question for Kelly. Having lived in Massachusetts for a while, I felt such a resemblance with the environment and these private little museums where we spent a lot of Sundays. And I thought the cinematography was very interesting as a way of bringing forward this the feeling of this environment. But I wanted to ask you why your thoughts behind the cinematography and the way that it's sort of boxed in the characters, where the top of the images were always very close to the heads and sort of very contrary to a more usual grand landscape idea of how to portray America. So if you could tell us something about your thoughts on the cinematography and the imagery of the film in relation to the environment that it portrays. Thank you.
Sure. Well, a cinematographer, a longtime partner, Chris Blavel, who really takes any idea you have and makes it, just makes it more than you thought it could be. Well, it's hard to, you kind of think of it as a whole, like trying to think what the beginning strategy was, but, well, I think it's mixed in with the landscape of the first location I had was the IMP building of the outside of the museum, which is actually a library. And it's quite a modest building. It's like a brick, sort of brutalist, modern, clean lines. And so, as I was mentioning with the Dove paintings, you just kind of want all things to fit the scope of the world and the scope of Mooney's neighborhood. And even his really, frame of mind that is not that expansive, that's like, around himself a little bit. So I don't know, those are the sort of starting things. And then, I don't know, you're just like working in the space you have and trying to figure out, it's all time and space. I guess that's what filmmaking is, right? And figuring out how to make those things work together. But yeah, I'm trying to remember what our, I think, the first sort of design of how we would shoot came from spending time there at the library and kind of working from there. But I guess it's, yeah. Again, it's like, it's a process. You're thinking about how you're going to shoot it when you're writing, and then you're working at the locations, and then Chris is there, and then Tony Gasparo's doing his thing, and Amy Roth's doing her thing, and then these guys show up. It's just, process. And so it's, it's like a growing thing as you go. Yeah.
We have a question on the right.
Hi, I'm Zach from London, speaking with Future First. In this film, you play an art thief that's stuck between keeping his family together and his passion for art and theft, and speaking in full English, while in La Chimera, you play a grave robber and you're constantly searching for your lost love in full Italian. Could you elaborate on the differences in acting and emotional preparation for these two characters and why you cherish playing these introspective, poignant roles? Also, I asked Paul Mescal the other day if he could describe his perception and relationship with you, and he mentioned that he thinks you're incredibly silly and you have 8 Jolly Rancher candies a day. Both of you were fixated on that. So he was looking forward to your reaction on what he said. So could you share your perception and relationship with him? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, in answer to the first one, apart from the very obvious difference of speaking in Italian and speaking in my native tongue, which adds a different slight complication to me speaking Italian. There is a kind of, I don't know that I was necessarily aware of it at the time, but there is something in the Kelly and Alice which I really, I love them both for starters. But there's also, I think that working with Kelly had this kind of, I don't know, there's a kindness to working with Kelly, which you don't often get, which is a really, which Alice had. And that I found that really, that really informs performance to me. But they're very different, I know they're stealing art, but they are very different characters. And actually, in La Chimera, he's searching for something else, as you said. Regarding Paul, I am silly. And we did, every Friday we used to eat candy. That was our treat. Yeah.
With his thing over. It's funny you say that because I realize now, like with Alice, a character is, so devoted to one idea of love because she's a romantic. Yeah. And here you have a family and you're like, I gotta get away. Gotta get away from it. Really and that probably sums it all up right there.
Since that sums it up,
I just would like to say what a fan I am of Alice. Beautiful filmmaker. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Wrap it up.
I'm afraid we have to. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this wonderful film.